Hosted by Gray Jones, the TV Writer Podcast is brought to you by Script Magazine and ScriptMag.com, the leading source for script writing information in print and on the web. And by Final Draft script writing software, the entertainment industry standard for script writing worldwide. This is Gray Jones, and I want to welcome you to the TV Writer Podcast, partner of Script Magazine, episode 20 for Monday, May 2nd, 2011. This is part 2 of our exciting roundtable discussion on social media and the writer. If you are entering at part 2, don't do it! You gotta watch part 1 first, because this is a direct continuation of part 1. So if you haven't seen part 1, please go to tvwriterpodcast.com and find part 1. It'll be right up at the top. Watch that first, and then you can come back for part 2. But if you already watched that one, then welcome. And I'm going to introduce you to our panel, Joshua Stecker from Script Magazine, and Jeannie Bowerman and Jamie Livingston from Scriptchat are joining us in our roundtable discussion. I'm not going to do the full intros because we did that last week, but we're going to pick it up. I'm going to replay the last comment from Jeannie as she was talking about meeting Joshua in New York and what she was bringing to the meeting to pay it forward. So here we go.
My writing partner works he's the senior national correspondent of the Wall Street Journal and Pulitzer Prize winner. And so I immediately thought, well, hot damn, if Josh is going to come to New York and I'm going to meet him for coffee, I'm going to introduce him to a Pulitzer Prize winner. Like, what journalist wouldn't want to meet one, you know? And then so I got Doug to come up from Atlanta, and we all had lunch together, and that's where our friendship, and the first time we started talking about doing some sort of blog post for Script, happened. But it's, because I was purposely thinking, what little nugget can I do for him? Like, that might just make it a fun day for him beyond just, us getting together and having coffee. And I try whenever I can to do that, this is what I can do for you in exchange, or let's think about what we both have to offer and bring to the table, and how can we find some synergy here that's not just beneficial to me, but that's also beneficial to you. I'm a very big believer in that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's a great lesson in any kind of networking. People love to talk about themselves, and any chance you get to focus on them will give them a good impression about you. It's an amazing thing at a party. You could have a 30-minute conversation with somebody, and if you let them talk the entire time, they'll go and tell people how wonderful you are.
That's so true. Especially in this town, man.
Yeah,
this town meaning Los Angeles, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so because I think a lot happens, and obviously we're talking about things like the average budding writer probably doesn't know a lot of people in the industry and is very new at this, and I do encourage you to check out resources. One that really helped me was How to Make It in Hollywood by Linda Buzzell. Amazing book. Not just applicable to Hollywood. I've used all of the techniques in Toronto, and they're incredible. But when you get a chance to meet one of these people, or even a lot of people will, if they're in the same city as you, will go out for coffee with you. And I encourage you to do actual like, this is not just for online. If you ever have a chance to set up a personal meeting, absolutely do it. You'd be amazed at the number of people who are willing to have coffee with you, and to just chat. When you have a chance to get with that person, you're asking questions. You're not pitching. You're not saying, okay, finally I have a chance to give them my script. Ask questions, ask, and find out about them, find out about their take on the industry, everything that they know. And at the end of the talk, you say, what should I do? Tell me where to go. Do you have one or two other people that you can get me in touch with that will help? As long as you have that attitude of giving and finding out and not taking, it gives people a much better impression of you.
I have another book suggestion. It's called Good in a Room: How to Sell Yourself and Win Over Any Audience by Stephanie Palmer. It is kind of industry. it's not like specifically for the movie industry. It's for anything. I mean, if you want to sell your product, if you just want to sell yourself, it's an absolutely incredible book. Everybody I've recommended it to recommends it to their friends highly. So that's a good book too. It also teaches you, like you said, to listen instead of talk.
Mm-hmm. Great suggestion. So now we're hitting the hour point, and we still have a few things that I really want to cover, and they are some resources. We're going to talk first about a Twitter-based resource, then a Facebook-based resource, and a couple other resources online. And the Twitter-based resource is Scriptchat. So I'm going to open the floor to Jamie and Jeannie and tell us about Scriptchat.
Well, Scriptchat started, and I have to give 100% credit to WriteChat, because if it hadn't been for WriteChat, this never would have happened. Jeannie had actually invited Zach Sanford and I to WriteChat, and it is a fantastic chat, but it just wasn't for us because we were primarily screenwriters. And then between the three of us, we thought, we kind of tweeted back and forth and said, hey, you know what? Let's do something specific to screenwriting. And Scriptchat was born.
Yeah, and then we pulled in Mina Zaire in London, because we started having a lot of European script chatters saying, hey, just write screenwriters saying, hey, we want this at a better time slot for us, so we don't have to stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning to participate. And so we started, just 2 weeks into it, started a European time slot. But basically what we do is we meet every Sunday at either 8 p.m. in global time for the Euro chat, or 8 p.m. Eastern time, which is 5 Pacific. And every week, every Sunday night, we meet and we have a different topic every week. Tonight, we're talking about handling feedback from reaction to rewrite. And
actually, when this airs, that won't be the topic.
Oh, that will be past. But
last week's topic was
last week's topic. I should look up and see what next week's topic is, which I will. But so we get together, and really, here's the thing. What happens in a lot of writer chats and with a lot of people in talking about craft, they tend to get there's a little bit of an ego that comes into play about, my way of doing it is better than your way of doing it. I like to just write free form with no outline. And, there's a little bit of judgment sometimes that comes across in the tweet. Well, not with us, because I will smack you down if you do that. We basically say, bring your tequila and leave your ego behind, because I don't care how seasoned you are. I don't care, what your experience is. There's always something to learn. And so we prefer people come to the table being humble and open to learning, a different philosophy, different viewpoint, different tip. And everybody does. And people are so incredibly supportive. And if somebody tweets out something about having a problem or being stuck on something, you bet they're all jumping all over it trying to help them and get past whatever the hurdle is. It's just this incredible community. And some indie filmmakers pop into it too. And we have lots of guests, produced writers. Again, I feel like I'm just like, Dana Brunetti's chick here, but he popped in on a 30,000 feet in the air, to guest on the chat.
Talk about when Jane did the last
Jane Espenson, during a Euro chat, they were talking about TV writing, and one of the Euro chatters tweeted out to Jane Espenson, hey, it would be really great if we could get you on Scriptchat sometime. And this was the Euro time slot is, hours before the USA one. Mm-hmm. So a couple hours later, she saw the tweet and tweeted back and said, I'd love to be on Scriptchat. What do I do? And so I tweeted her back and I said, hey, the American chat starts in like an hour. It was like an hour and a half or something. We were talking about TV writing. Do you want to join us? And she's like, absolutely. And even with just an hour and a half's notice, she was on, gave us the full hour, gave advice. She was incredible. And that's the kind of person that's out there on Twitter, and you never know what happens on Scriptchat. You never know who's going to pop in. John August popped in on our very first chat.
Wow.
And we'd love to get him back, like for a real hour long.
You hear that, John?
Yeah. Please. Yeah, I did a little begging of that on the Script magazine.
So we have no problem groveling.
Yeah. Well, you have not if you ask not.
Yeah. And you know, and I think I found you through Script Mag, and the TV Writer podcast. And I mean, if you read any of my tweets, you know that I'm a fan. And, you know, and those little, and that comes from being in groups like Scriptchat. And I have on my, TweetDeck, I have a column that has a search, which is just Scriptchat. So anything that comes up where someone has used the hashtag Scriptchat, because even though the main chat is 1 hour on Sunday nights, you can use the hashtag at any time to ask questions, to give feedback, to meet other screenwriters. And it's always, you know, people use it all day, all the time. And definitely have that column if you have TweetChat or some other form, like Hootsuite or something, and see what's going on, even though it's not that 1 hour during Scriptchat on Sunday night.
And unlike Script Magazine, we have a Scriptchat account, and all 5 of the Treefort members have the password for the account. I tend to typically run it, but I'm really bad at following everybody back. I sort of just put out a tweet the other day that just said, I give up. If you want to talk to us, as long as you use the Scriptchat hashtag, we will respond to you, you know?
Yeah, it's
but
tough.
It is tough. It's really hard. I don't know how you do it, Josh.
You know what? You know how you can do it, Jeannie, on Scriptchat? Go to socialumph.com and you can auto follow back on Scriptchat, and then you don't have to worry about, just put in the Scriptchat Twitter name, and you can set it up to auto follow anybody who follows Scriptchat, and then you don't have to worry about it. Do you know about that, Joshua?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I like to do it organically because I like to vet people most of the time instead of doing the whole auto follow thing. But yeah, I know that those things exist. Yeah, and they're very effective.
Yeah, and be aware that there are people. Actually, I've seen this advice online. One of the Twitter strategies now is if you want to gain followers, just randomly follow as many people as possible, and some of them will follow you back. And so I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot higher percentage lately of totally disassociated people, like who have nothing to do with writing, nothing to do with anything I do, following just in the hopes that they'll get more followers, and then they'll unfollow you later.
That's half my follower count, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you use a Twin follow at all? You?
No,
I do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I use that all the time. That's all. I mean, I use that. It's funny to see because you'll get somebody who'll follow you one day and then they'll unfollow you the next day. It drives me nuts.
Yeah.
You don't have that. It's Twin. Is it
TW unfollow, I think, or something like that.
.com.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go in and see, and you can set up an account. And then when someone unfollows you, you can set it up so that you get an email and you can unfollow them back.
Yeah, it's twinfollow.com.
Oh, I do have one. It's a different one. I can't remember the name of it, but it aggregates them. So every week or two, I get an email that has a whole bunch of them, and I manually go through and do that. So just before we move on, logistically, just to explain if somebody's not that familiar with Twitter or hasn't been on Twitter yet, what you would need to do to take part in Scriptchat is you would first need a Twitter account, which is really, really easy to set up. And you don't actually have to tweet to have an account. You can just set it up just for this kind of thing. And then if you have a desktop program or a program on your mobile device to access Twitter, there's a whole bunch of them available. One of the best ones is TweetDeck. And TweetDeck, what it lets you do is set up an entire column that is just one specific topic. And the way you access that is when we say it's a hashtag in Twitter is a # on your keyboard and then the word. So #Scriptchat is the hashtag Scriptchat. And when you set it up, or just search for that hashtag, set it up in your TweetDeck or your other Twitter application, then it will only show you the tweets anywhere in the world where somebody has used that particular hashtag. And so it's really easy to do.
Yes, whether you're following the person or not, it shows.
Yeah, whether you're following the person or not. And actually, it's a great way to find people to follow.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And another way to do when you participate in the chat is if you go to TweetChat facebook.com/room/scriptchat. They're all that information's like, we have a whole tab on our website on how to participate in a chat, and it's called scriptchat.com. And if you go into the tweet chat room, you don't have to keep adding the hashtag scriptchat to your tweets to be seen in the to have your tweets seen. It'll automatically add that for you, which makes it a lot easier when you're in a real, because these chats can get really busy. So that's the way I do it. I participate through tweet chat, and then I keep my tweet deck open so that I can see the mentions to me, the people who are talking to me, so that I can respond to them.
It would be really nice to have Script Mag as a guest on Script Chat some night.
Yeah, anytime you want to pop on, Josh, and if you have something you want to pimp, like, like when you have like contests or whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah,
you're always welcome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I think it would be good for, just maybe there's people out there who don't know just what Script Mag has to offer, and, telling them face to face, if for lack of a better term, I think the chat would be a great place to do that.
Yeah, I'd love to have it open up, just to have people ask questions, because I like to be as transparent as possible and tell you, the fun and the not so fun, and the stories and the trenches and all that stuff that goes on with the magazine. Because there are a lot of good ones. But
we should do it. We should do it like a week after you have one of those award shows when you're in the press room.
Oh,
and then the next week you can come on and tell us what it was really like.
Oh man, it's a lot less glamorous than what people think. That's for sure. That's for darn sure.
Cool. So Script Chat Sunday nights, definitely take advantage of that, and also just any day of the week, use that hashtag, and you'll get some great stuff. We'll move on to another resource. This one is Facebook based, and we heard a little bit about it in a recent podcast with Karen Walton. But this one is Inc. Canada. Now, Inc. Canada is not just for Canadians. There's literally, lots of people are connected to this Facebook group from the States and around the world. All you do to connect is you when you're on your Facebook, in the search field at the top, just type in Inc. Canada, INK Canada, all one word, and you'll see it, Inc. Canada Facebook edition. Click to it and you'll see what's there. There's a wall, like a main feed, where the moderators will post important news, links, helpful articles, a lot related to the Canadian scene, but also general writing resources. And if you have something that is helpful to the rest of the group, you can post it on the wall there. And then there's also discussion groups, and there are some lively discussions that go on where they post topics, and tons of writers from all over will enter these discussion groups. It's run much more like a forum as compared to the Script Chat. One of the things about Twitter, which is there's pros and cons about Twitter. One of the cons is that if you're not there at the right time, you can miss a tweet and never find it again. Technically, there's probably a way to find it, but my experience is after a few hours, good luck. And so it's the kind of thing where if I go on at 7 o'clock, I'm going to see the tweets that are, from say 5 or 6 o'clock and onward, but I'm not going to see what came out earlier in the day. And a lot of things are retweeted. A lot of information comes again. But Facebook, one advantage of Facebook is that, say, for instance, when a message goes on the wall and you've liked that Facebook group, it's in your feed. Whether you see it today, later on today, tomorrow, it's there for you to see. These discussion groups are very, very much the same way, that it's run like a forum online, where once you enter the discussion, number one, you'll get email notifications anytime somebody replies to that particular topic. You can actually follow the thread of people who've discussed that topic. And again, it's a great way to interact with writers, because what happens is you engage in a discussion with a very specific person. Everybody who is engaged in that discussion now gets these emails notifying them of these responses. You show yourself to be intelligent and respectful, there's a very good chance that you can set up great relationships that way. And again, so this is not just for Canada, it's for anybody who wants to take part in that, I encourage you to do so no matter where you are. And also another thing they do is they sponsor events, and they also help promote events. One of them is Ink Drinks, which happens at various Canadian cities. I just had one this last weekend where a lot of writers come out and just share some beers together. And then they also help promote other events related to the Canadian scene. So really, really, really interesting Facebook-based option for connecting with cool writers. And I would mention that almost all of the interviews now that I get for the TV Writer podcast are coming from either Facebook or Twitter.
Yeah, I know. I've been no help. I know. I gotta get you people.
Yeah,
I got one for you. I can talk to you about this week, actually, but that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
I do.
Cool. It's a good problem to have, but I literally have a really full slate of interviews just from people that I've connected with on Twitter and Facebook. That's always a happy problem.
Definitely.
It's actually how I found you, because I went to listen to a podcast on Tim Stubinsky from Wolf Canyon.
Yeah. Yeah, some very cool stuff. And I would say, again, to the U.S. viewers, listeners, that please don't think that just because that Canadian series was not in your country that they don't have important things to say and things you can learn from. I'm sure you guys can attest to the fact that those Canadian writers have had some incredible things to say. And actually, because the scene is a little tougher in Canada, they're much more entrepreneurial, which I think is an attitude that helps any beginning writer.
I agree. I've listened to every single one that you've done on the TV Writer series, and it doesn't matter if it's Canada or not. It's all the same medium, and the interviews are incredibly informative.
Yeah, definitely so. Now, another resource that we're going to move on to is Script Magazine.
Oh, that's good. Yay.
So, Joshua, why don't you take the floor a little bit and share not just start with the social networking, and you've talked about that a little bit, but also what else is available kind of online-ish?
Well, since I work the website, basically I run the social media aspect, and I run the website, scriptmag.com. And the print product is completely different from the website. Although we have a digital subscription, what you find in the actual print magazine, you, for the most part, won't find on the website, which will change soon, but that's a whole other issue. But we focus a lot on the website on basically, we have a select group of columnists that write. Chad Gervich writes a great primetime column on scriptmag.com that focuses on TV writing, but he's actually branched out and talked about a lot of different topics pertaining to writers that seems to draw a lot of controversy. His columns are probably, I think they are the highest viewed columns on the site right now, because he likes to spur controversy. I mean, the last one we ran, or a couple weeks back, we ran one where he basically criticized the product that Final Draft puts out, called Script Expert. He basically wrote a piece on script coverage and how he's against it. And that seemed to draw a lot of people out of the woodworks. And he's written pieces in the past about, like, should you move to L.A.? Do you have to move to L.A. to become a screenwriter? And he has strong opinions. And that's what you're going to find mostly on the website, are people with strong viewpoints and strong opinions, which is a lot different from the editorial slant that we have in the print product. Jeannie's column, which is great, Balls of Steel, which I know it took a long time to get going. But now that it's up and running, I think it's amazing. And the one thing about Jeannie's column that I like is that it's inspirational. And a lot of people are getting that from her. And not because she's trying to spout inspiration, but because she's telling her story and what she's been going through and what she's done to nurture her career. And people are taking from that and applying that to themselves, which is something that I think is really important, especially to our screenwriting community. You know, the majority of people who read Script Magazine, who use Final Draft, because they are our parent company, are, you know, for the most part, probably unproduced, probably trying to get their foot in the door, talented, but just haven't, you know, made their way in. And we are that, you know, I don't want to say we're the key to helping them, but we are one of the tools that they can use to apply to their career and hopefully succeed at it. And that's kind of what we feel is like kind of the mission statement with Script Magazine. While Final Draft is the number one screenwriting software and 90+% of the industry uses it, and that's one thing. And I'm not here to pimp the software, but Script Magazine by proxy is the other tool where you can learn from and that can make your writing that much better by listening to the writers we interview, by taking from them their lessons, their stories, breaking into the business, how they did it, what they're using, how do they write, where do they write, what pieces of advice can they give. I think one of the things we're doing now, we're really branched out on our podcasts. And I mean, geez, we probably put like anywhere between 2 to 3 podcasts a week lately. Mm-hmm. And what we've been doing with those is trying to, instead of putting it in print form, just hearing it from the writer's mouth. Hearing it from them is a lot different than just reading it. And one of the things that really, one of the lessons that I got, I'm not a screenwriter, by the way. I'm a journalist. I just love you guys, but I'm not out there trying to write a script or anything yet.
Yet.
But the whole thing behind it is I want to know when I interview somebody, how they got to where they are, what did they use to get there, what tools did they learn, what lessons have they learned that made their script or their writing habits better. Because most of the people we've interviewed, in fact, probably 99% of them, they didn't make it on their first screenplay. They didn't make it on their first try. They have piles of screenplay that had never been read or barely got read, or maybe one of them that got them in the door to somebody who read it and said, okay, write this. And, and that's where it starts. And good work befalls good work. And then the ball gets rolling. And then these people get more work and more work. And then they have a career. And that's what we're trying to cover with the magazine. And hopefully, as the months progress, we'll be implementing some new tools with the website. We have plans to do that right now, which will make the website a little bit more of a writer's resource. And we're going to continue it that way. So I don't know. I think I hit on a lot of different topics all at once, and now I just got a frozen sugar-free vanilla that I'm going to suck on it on camera. It's really good. So anyways, yeah.
Very, very cool. And the last resource, or second last, because there's another cool one that I'm going to say after this, is the TV Writer podcast. Of course, I would mention that one. In specific relating to social networking, the Twitter database, I encourage you to check it out. Over 700 TV writers on that database. You can find it at tvwriterpodcast.com. And very, very important, in the small print at the top, there's an opportunity to follow the database as a Twitter list. And that means you can actually get the tweets from all of these writers in your Twitter feed, or if you can set up a TweetDeck column just for those TV writers, just by following a couple of handy links at the top. So take advantage of that resource. Also, relating to social networking, do follow me on Twitter to find out when people are being interviewed and get your questions in. We've had a number of people interviewed with no viewer questions, and that is a missed opportunity. And I'll tell you why, because it's actually happened several times before when I'm going to interview somebody on either one of my podcasts, and people will submit questions for the podcast, and they actually make the interviewer interested in the person who asked that question. So if you ask an intelligent question, you might actually set up a relationship with a person just by that question. Also, you can do something like you can submit a question in video form. If you have a webcam, you can record your question, send it in to me, and I can actually include your mug on the podcast, actually asking the question, and most of the interviewees actually watch the podcasts back. And I guess we're all a little vain, but and so when they watch the podcast back, they can actually see your face. Again, the personal branding thing. What better opportunity is that than the next time they see you at a pitch fest or a conference or something like that, they might actually recognize you from the question that you asked in the podcast. And again, anytime you want to send me an email and ask a question of one of these writers, or if you have a comment for them, take advantage of that. These are amazing resources that were not available some time ago. And obviously, I'd love for you to watch the podcasts. You probably are, because you're watching this one. But you can find them. I mean, all that stuff at tvwriterpodcast.com, and there's lots of other great resources. Like there's a section on the links on the sidebar of every page with at least 10 Facebook groups related to writing, and I will keep adding more to that. So there are other social networking areas that I'll be adding as we go. And the last resource, the conclusion of this roundtable podcast is blank. You fill in the blank. Like I said in the beginning of this podcast, we're just on the cusp of understanding the massive opportunities in social networking. There are I don't want to say no books, but there are very few books written on this topic. Somebody might be writing a book about the thing that you did. So you're right. You're a writer. You're a creative person. Think about a creative way that you can use Facebook or Twitter or something else, like Jeannie and Jamie and Zach did with Scriptchat, like Karen Walton did with Ink Canada. There are tremendous areas to grow in using social networking that, us more mature people, I don't know, can we call ourselves that? Sometimes people younger that have grown up with all this technology can think outside the box in a way that we can't. So do it. Find a great way to network. Find a new way that's better than the things that we've come up with, that 5 years from now they'll be writing a movie about your social network. And other than that, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you guys think we should add?
Blogs. If someone, like Jeannie has
I was just going to say that.
Follow the blogs. I mean, you can learn so much. There's people, maybe you can help me, Jeannie, with the name, because I can't remember it off the top of my head. He's doing the Nickelodeon fellowship for TV writers. His blog is incredible. He's talking about his experience with the fellowship. I had posted, it's been back in August of last year, about the different fellowships that were available. And to this day, it's had 1,600 views. And I've never even, for lack of a better term, Jeannie, pimped it, except back in August. But follow people's blogs. You can learn so much. John August is incredible. He's just got the most informative blog. And there's so many blog resources out there too, that people are so generous with their experience and their information.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and also I would add to the blog thing is comment on people's blogs, because that's how you build a relationship. It's also how you can get your opinion on writing and your opinion on the business out into the vortex of the world out there. And also you're building, you never know if you like John August, you comment on his blog, you don't know if, I'm sure he's reading some of them. He's probably not reading all the comments, but you're still connecting with, a lot of times you can click a thing that says, notify me when any other comments are added to this blog. So it's much like you were saying before about Facebook, where you can be notified and be part of a dialogue. And I can't fully talk about this gig yet, but I can tell you that I have been asked to write for a new TV show based on building a relationship by commenting on this person's blog.
Wow.
And you can develop true friendships and respect. I mean, that's what happened for us. We had a very similar philosophy on the business, which wasn't always PC, and we were open about the way we each felt, and we had a lot of respect for each other, and it developed into a friendship and a job opportunity. So you never know what is out there, who's reading it. And I also have to say, I know that a lot of people use Twitter to vent, and to spew things. I certainly have about the Catholic school priest. There's no question. But I try to follow the rule, not to tweet anything, not to put anything on Facebook, anywhere out there that I wouldn't want to be comfortable seeing on the front page of the paper. Right. I basically have a pretty thick skin, so I'm pretty comfortable with a lot of stuff. I don't have a problem with my flaws being aired, and I'm very open about mistakes I've made, so I don't have a problem with stuff like that. But if I wouldn't want my father reading it, I'm not tweeting it out. And that's the rule I live by.
Yeah. And I would add to that rule, there are 8-year-olds on Twitter.
Yes.
So your father and your nephew.
Yes.
And your employees.
And your employees. And
your
employers.
Please don't have them follow me.
Yeah. And especially with Twitter, as much as it could be tough to find old tweets, I heard that every single one of them is archived now.
Yes.
Yeah, the archived tweets.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so your employer 5 years from now can find out what you've tweeted.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know.
Well, I am self-employed and want to be fired. So I will just have to follow the rules based on other people's problems.
Yeah. Well, and the blog thing is a great topic of discussion too, because there are so many helpful things out there that other people would love to know about. And so again, you don't want to be a tweeter who's only tweeting links. But if you find a great blog, and again that you vet it, you read it and you think it's awesome, do comment on the blog, but also tweet it, put it on your Facebook. And when you are finding a lot of these, and people see that you're finding a lot of these and generating great content, then you're much more inclined to be followed and interacted with. And also, if you're so inclined, do a blog.
Can I interrupt really quickly? I'm sorry, about links.
Yeah.
And I have ranted on Twitter about this. And do not auto DM people. When someone follows you, auto DM is so insincere. Not only that, don't send people unless you're telling them ahead of time and letting them know that you're sending a link to them that's personal to them. Don't DM people links, because that's how people get viruses.
No, and another thing, this happened to me yesterday. I think I tweeted about it too. They have these stupid Twitter validation services now. They're like these third-party things. Yeah. Like, I followed somebody yesterday, then I got a DM from, well, just to prove who you are, please follow this link and validate yourself through this system. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to jump through 5 hoops just to follow you.
Yeah.
I'm like,
exactly. I don't either.
And don't click those links, because it could be a spam.
I don't. I just think they're annoying.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, when you do post a link, don't just post the link, because links are typically shortened, and so you can't look at it and see what the website is, what the address is. Mm-hmm. And so always, if you are posting a link on your Twitter or Facebook, do a comment explaining what you're linking to. Otherwise, people just won't click it.
That's same for Follow Fridays. Don't just post a bunch of people's names in your feed with a Follow Friday. If you want someone to follow somebody else, give them a good reason to follow them. When people post, Follow Friday with 15 names in them, I'm not going to go through all of those names and see why I should follow them. But if you give me one and you say, oh my gosh, this person is hilarious, or they're so informative, I will actually take the time to look at that person's feed and probably follow them. If it's a bunch of them in one link and you didn't give a reason for it, I'll probably just ignore the tweet.
Well, one of the things that I do is that I don't really participate that much in Follow Friday because on my blog I have a page dedicated specifically to Follow Friday where I do that. I give the person's name and a paragraph reason why you should follow them, what value I found out of them, and I always put a link to their website or whatever it is that they've got. Sadly, I have not updated it in a very, very long time, so I need to do that, and I will once I'm done with this deadline. I'll go through and I'll update it, but then I tweet out a link. My one Follow Friday is tweeting out a link to that list. And I have people separated into, here are the screenwriters, here are the novelists, here are filmmakers, here are musicians, here, whatever it is, so that people can just go to the target of what interests them and find some new people and understand why I think they're so great. And that's what I do, because I don't like filling people's feeds with a bunch of Follow Fridays.
Yeah.
At GC Geek does the same thing. He has a really good blog post for Follow Fridays.
Very, very cool. And of course, all the participants of this roundtable are on Twitter, and I will post all of the Twitter addresses in the description of the podcast. And so when you do watch this podcast, if you look at the text on the page, you'll find out how to follow Jeannie and Jamie and Joshua and myself. And I encourage you to do so, because we're all very active in the community and can help you get connected with whoever you want to get connected with, at least within the limits of our resources. Yeah. And you know that, and the amazing thing is, and you guys can all absolutely confirm this, is it's such a mutually beneficial thing, and you make friends. Like I've never met, like, I mean, my Chuck podcast, I've done, I think 86 episodes now, and I've never met my co-hosts, but they're great friends.
That's just weird.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I wanted to have you guys on this podcast because we just have been interacting on Twitter, and I just saw you guys are people who have something to offer on this topic. You know, everybody has that opportunity to set up that kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, but
it's kind of a friendship in a way. My husband makes fun of me when I call it friends, but for the lack of a better word, it's a friendship. I mean, it's not a face-to-face, but it really is. It's a friendship. Just be warned, some of us are prolific tweeters. So be warned.
Yeah, and
I've had people unfollow me because I tweet too much, and I'm totally cool with that. If I still like them, I don't automatically unfollow them. I still follow them. You know.
Yeah, and perhaps one place to end it would be something that we haven't mentioned yet, and one of the reasons that I've heard, actually one of the most frequent reasons I've heard, is that people are afraid that social networking will take too much of their writing time. And that's one of the...
It can. Yeah,
one of the biggest... I mean, when Facebook first came out, one creative friend of mine called it crackbook. Because it can swallow your time. And so that's up to you and your personality, your work habits. You have to figure out what it means for you. And say, you know, Stan Lee tweets at night. He has a certain time, 8 o'clock every night or whatever it is, that he comes on Twitter and he tweets something. If that's all you do, great. Everybody knows to watch for Stan Lee at 8 o'clock. And so, you know, I mean, if you just tell everybody, I tweet at night, put that on your bio, then you can structure your writing time in such a way that that it's not swallowing your time. And so all of these advantages can be available to you without taking away from your writing.
I think it also depends on your style of writing. Like, I can write, I like white noise in the background. So to me, Twitter is just the white noise in the background when I write. And when I wrote the first draft for Slavery by Another Name, I tweeted all during while I was writing it. But that was part of my strategy. I tweeted with the hashtag Slavery by Another Name so that people would, at first they thought I was talking about writing being slavery by another name. But it was so that people would be engaged in the story. You know, like I would talk about how, oh my God, the plantation owner, wait till you see what he just did, you know? And then they would be like, oh my God, I can't wait to read the script when you're done. And I tweeted throughout the whole thing. And, you know, but it worked for me, and it did not distract me from my writing, from what I was doing. It actually kept me focused. And to know that there were people there cheering me on, waiting for me to say, I just typed the end. You know, you can use that energy to propel your writing if you're smart about it.
Yeah, I like seeing on Twitter when, especially in the Script Mag feed, I like seeing writers tweet, okay, 10 pages today. Or, you know, it's that little motivational thing that they do. And sometimes, you know, I'll tweet a Script Mag, you know, go for it. That's great. You know, good luck. Break a leg, blah, blah, blah. But I like seeing that little motivation thing going on. And then at the end, when they say, you know, I finished 12 pages today. Can't believe it. Or, you know, this, that, or the other. Sometimes I'll even DM people just simple messages just to congratulate them on stuff like that, because that's important. But I can totally see how Twitter can be a time suck. and a distraction for those who can't focus.
The other thing that I use Twitter for is actually to focus me. Like, I will specifically get on Twitter, and if I've been just putzing around or being procrastinating, I'll get on Twitter and say, okay, I'm going to do a 30-minute writing sprint. Who's going to do it with me? And a whole bunch of people will pop on and say, me. And then that's it. I'm like, okay, go. And we write for 30 minutes, no tweeting allowed, no distraction allowed. You just focus and write. So I actually will go to the source of distraction for focus.
Well, that's and it works. Well, that's just how, I mean, that's one of the great things about you, Jeannie, is that you, not only that, but you've utilized Twitter into different, you've morphed it. It's like Play-Doh to you. You've changed it in these different ways. And one minute you're creating a dinosaur, the next minute you're creating a ball. And it's like, I'm really happy. I'm really impressed with how you've utilized the medium in ways that I don't think many people have thought about.
Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I got balls of steel, Josh.
Yes, and apparently, according to Graham's intro, you do have balls of steel.
I do.
Yeah. So, unless there's any other last thoughts?
That's it.
I'm good.
That's it.
I'm good.
Well, thank you so much to Jamie Livingston and Jeannie Bowerman and Joshua Stecker. And boy, if people don't watch this one, I think they're missing out.
You got a lot of editing to do, man.
Yeah, good luck editing this down to an hour.
Yeah.
No chance. It'll be almost an hour 40.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
And worth every minute.
Yeah, worth every minute. So thank you so much for putting up with this for the last hour and 40 minutes. And I just can't wait to see what you're going to do on Twitter and on Facebook. And I hope that you connect with us and let us know. Feedback on the podcast comment page, feedback on Twitter and Facebook. Let us know what you thought about our ideas, and if you have any more, we'd love to hear from you. But on that note, bye-bye.
Bye.
And that is the end of our roundtable discussion on social media and the writer. I hope you enjoyed this discussion, and I hope you can put it to good use. Don't forget the homework on the table to read Chad Gervich's excellent book, Small Screen, Big Picture, and to send in your questions. You can send them in up to about May 6th or 7th, and then you can get your questions answered by Chad Gervich, who also writes for Script Magazine. You send those questions to mail@tvwriterpodcast.com. Make sure to watch at the podcast site for lots of great new podcasts coming up in May, and have a great writing week. Bye-bye. Hosted by Gray Jones, the TV Writer Podcast is brought to you by Script Magazine and ScriptMag.com, the leading source for script writing information in print and on the web. And by Final Draft script writing software, the entertainment industry standard for script writing worldwide.